All right, we have some news just coming in at this point in time. This has got to do with the Prime Minister's clearest message to bully Trump. Will never let down farmers, is what the Prime Minister has said, saying that he's ready to pay a personal price for the same. It's a resounding, no compromise war cry from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Clearly, the gloves are off here. Modi hints at an all-out counter at US bullying. The American president particularly coming down heavily on India. India says we are ready to pay a huge price, but the interest of farmers comes first, says the Prime Minister. This has got to do with US being bitter about India not allowing access to agriculture, protecting the interest of our farmers, and that's the reason why things have worsened. Karishma is getting in more details on that story, but before that, let's take a listen.
हमारे लिए अपने किसानों का हित सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता है। भारत अपने किसानों के, पशुपालकों के और मछुआरे भाई बहनों के हितों के साथ कभी भी समझौता नहीं करेगा। और मैं जानता हूं व्यक्तिगत रूप से मुझे बहुत बड़ी कीमत चुकानी पड़ेगी, लेकिन मैं इसके लिए तैयार हूं। मेरे देश के किसानों के लिए, मेरे देश के मछुआरों के लिए, मेरे देश के पशुपालकों के लिए आज भारत तैयार है।
Interest of our farmers first. That's the word from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. I'm going to go straight across to my colleagues Piyush Mishra and Karishma Sudani, getting in more details on that big story at this point in time. First to you, Karishma. Give us an idea about how, for the longest time, US has been really trying, and there's no better way to put this, arm twist India into compromising with the interest of our farmers. What were our specific demands that we didn't agree to for them to be further bullied by Trump in this fashion? Karishma.
Yeah, the US since day one has been asking greater market access, especially when it comes to goods pertaining to agriculture, that is rice, milk, maize, genetically organized, organic, genetically organic crops and soya. Now, India has taken a very strong stance since the beginning that it's not going to let its domestic farmers, domestic industry be impacted, because the minute you give that wider access and you let that happen, then there is going to be an issue with the way our systems and policies have been working, especially surround agriculture. So it's a very politically sensitive move that we are taking. Of course, our country is sticking its neck out in order to take a strong and firm stand of the fact that we are okay to absorb 50% tariff, but we are not okay to let go of something that we've been building on for years. Let's not forget, when it comes to data, about 18 to 20% of our GDP comes from agriculture. So we clearly will not be able to let that go. We cannot have that access, that market access cut down. And the fact that we've been building on the whole concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat and self-reliance, this will not be taken in good stride for us domestically if we have to budge into US demands.
Piyush also is with us. Karishma, continue to be with us. Piyush, this is the Prime Minister's reiteration. Obviously, it also comes at a time when the government is under a fair amount of spotlight, the opposition waiting for one small opportunity for the government to take any decision which would be against our farmers, and hence the government is taking this position that the interest of farmers comes first, isn't it?
Well, that's right, Asaya. The government has once again made it very clear that the interest of farmers comes first, and this is a stand which the government has been taking since the time US announced that it is going to impose tariff. Remember that in the last few months, there are multiple negotiations those have taken place between India and America, in which America always wanted India to import a few products like non-veg, milk, GM crops, on which what we are told from our sources within the government that we are not going to import any kind of non-veg milk because not only the religious sentiments will be hurt, but it is also going to hurt our farmers economically, and that's what the Prime Minister is also highlighting, that okay, he's ready to pay a huge price for that, but for PM Narendra Modi, the interest of farmers comes first. And that's what he has once again highlighted. Remember that he was speaking during a program in which multiple organizations of farmers were also present, and in front of farmers himself, Prime Minister has highlighted that the interest of farmers is very, very important and it is paramount, and that's the stand which the government has been taking, and once again Prime Minister has reiterated this.
Be with us, Piyush, Karishma, getting in those details. Listen in once again to what the Prime Minister said.
हमारे लिए अपने किसानों का हित सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता है। भारत अपने किसानों के, पशुपालकों के और मछुआरे भाई बहनों के हितों के साथ कभी भी समझौता नहीं करेगा। और मैं जानता हूं व्यक्तिगत रूप से मुझे बहुत बड़ी कीमत चुकानी पड़ेगी, लेकिन मैं इसके लिए तैयार हूं। मेरे देश के किसानों के लिए, मेरे देश के मछुआरों के लिए, मेरे देश के पशुपालकों के लिए आज भारत तैयार है।
All right, I'm going to go straight across to Tom Vadakan of the Bharatiya Janata Party for more on that. Tom Vadakan, clearly the interest of the farmers and of our fishermen, like the Prime Minister said, has been put forth. But there's a price to pay, and we're seeing that very hard decisions, difficult decisions that have been taken by the US administration, which could cost us dear, isn't it?
Well, Prime Minister Modi ji has said what he had to say. And that is the reality, because we can't be imposed to do the diktats of a foreign head of state. So we are ready to pay the price. Prime Minister set the example that India first, and we will continue to do that. Our interests are important. We will have to do some sacrifices, yes, but we are ready to take on whatever comes our way, and we will support the agricultural sector, the farmers, the fishermen, and other sectors which are priority to India. We will not make any compromise. That's what the Prime Minister said.
I just want to ask you, Mr. Vadakan, this also comes at a time when there is obviously the opposition's eyes on you, isn't it? On the government, on what it decides to do vis-a-vis the interest of the farmers. Fair amount of pressure, because obviously there can't be any decision that is going to be taken against the interest of the farmers. Our agricultural economy is something that we have to protect, and this is what the government is doing.
Yes, when we support the farmers, the opposition will scream that our interests are being compromised. But the reality is, farmers have always been the priority of our Prime Minister. Fishermen is something that we will protect. And the other sectors, sensitive sectors that the Prime Minister mentions, will be protected, and he has reiterated these points. And I think the opposition is trying to build a narrative this way or the other, go against the state. Their hate for Modi ji is reflected in their hate for India, and they are fighting India. And I think the leader of the opposition is leading this tirade, and I don't think there's going to be any compromise by the government of India on these grounds.
Right. I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. Tom Vadakan of the Bharatiya Janata Party, our editor Business Today, Siddharth Zarabi, is also with us. Siddharth, what's your take on what the Prime Minister has said, reiterating that there is a personal price to pay, but they're willing to take it? Very tough decision, really, as far as India is concerned, to not succumb to the pressure from Donald Trump. But here comes a double whammy of doubling of tariffs. India is going to clearly suffer in all of this, isn't it?
Sneha, the moment the tariffs went beyond what was the pre-April rate, whether it becomes 50 or 100% doesn't matter, because it is clear that exports to the United States will see an impact. There will be some disruption. So that's pretty much factored in. And I can say that our trade negotiators and the decision-making establishment had factored in a negative possibility all along. But what is the most significant part right now from the Prime Minister's latest statement, and without taking names, he has made it very clear that the onus to blink on preventing a full-blown Cold War, so to say, on the trade and economic front with India is now on President Trump. Prime Minister Modi has made it clear he is not going to blink. That is, I think, the centrality of the message in the last 48 hours. This has been evolving situation, but as of now, with these remarks, it is very clear that 500 million people to take care of. And this is not about politics, as some people might suggest. It's about farm sector livelihood. It's about decades and decades of a carefully constructed food security architecture, which cannot be done away with or dismantled due to the whims and fancies of one particular leader. And that's the centrality of the point. And I would just end by saying that the proposed visit of the U.S. trade team later this month, as and when, if it were to happen, it's very clear that India is now drawing red lines once again. Those red lines had already been made clear to the U.S. side during closed-door negotiations. What is now interesting is that those red lines are now being made public for the world to see and understand what India is willing to do and unwilling to consider.
All right. Be with us, Siddharth. In fact, Samajwadi Party leader Rajiv Rai is also with us. Rajiv Rai, your take on what has been said by the Prime Minister, a personal price to pay. On one hand, we are seeing doubling of tariffs in India. On the other hand, we are seeing Pakistan really cozying up to the US. Your take on the current situation as far as the tariff war really is concerned, and the fallout of it?
First of all, this government should apologize to nation for being so sycophant with the Trump, Abki Baar, Trump Sarkar and Langotia, all those. I mean, they're clueless. They're clueless where to lead, where to go with the foreign policy. First time we are seeing totally bankruptcy of our foreign policy and foreign activities. Whatever today we are facing, just because government is clueless, directionless, spineless, and speechless. So they should take up the responsibility of whatever today is happening with this. And this is again my Honorable Prime Minister's this emotional dialogue. This will not go well with this country now. Enough is enough.
You know, Rajiv Rai, at the end of the day, we also have to factor in that we're dealing with a rather whimsical sort of a leader in President Donald Trump, who has taken decisions which may send out confusing signals as well, isn't it?
No. We all say whole country is with the government and army. But this BJP government keep bashing us and projecting us as anti-national. No other country will do. When there is a war, when there is enemies on our doorstep, and all the parties are there, we should send a signal that whole 1.4 billion people are together. They keep talking something which has no meaning, and that is the reason this U.S. has gone to the extent that cozying up with the Pakistan and distance. Now you are not good with any other country. None of the neighbors are good with us. Who should take up the responsibility? Not a single country stood by with us when there was a crisis. Someone has to take up the responsibility, no? For that also Nehru or opposition has to be blamed.
All right. I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. Rajiv Rai of the Samajwadi Party, they're talking about the fact that it's the BJP government to be blamed. Why did they walk an extra mile, in the sense that those slogans of Afki Baar, Trump Sarkar and all that really seems to have backfired here with the Prime Minister now essentially talking about the fact that as far as this personal equation is also coming, there is a price to pay. He's ready to pay it. However, the need of the hour really is to protect our agricultural sector, says the Prime Minister.
समझौता नहीं करेगा। हमारे लिए अपने किसानों का हित सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता है। भारत अपने किसानों के, पशुपालकों के और मछुआरे भाई बहनों के हितों के साथ कभी भी समझौता नहीं करेगा। और मैं जानता हूं, व्यक्तिगत रूप से मुझे बहुत बड़ी कीमत चुकानी पड़ेगी, लेकिन मैं इसके लिए तैयार हूं। मेरे देश के किसानों के लिए, मेरे देश के मछुआरों के लिए, मेरे देश के पशुपालकों के लिए आज भारत तैयार है।
All right, I'm going to go across to Congress's Manikam Tagore also at this hour. Manikam Tagore, your response to what the Prime Minister has said. Clearly, there is fair amount of pressure on the government, but the Prime Minister is saying that there's a price to pay, a personal price to pay. I will pay it because the interest of the farmers comes first. This, of course, in the context of Trump really doubling down on the imposition of tariffs and bullying us, or at least trying to bully us.
Yeah, the Prime Minister is a master in his words, and he always uses very hard words, and we are expecting action from him now. Not only the words, there should be actions, because Mr. Trump has announced that 25% plus 25% tariff, and we are just hearing the words from Prime Minister after a long gap. But he should act now. Prime Ministers must act, not only speak. Good to hear his words that and make that statement in Parliament, but he is making this in the address to the MS Swaminathan Foundation. That's a good thing, but we expect action from him.
But I also want to ask you, Manikam Tagore, that in principle, do you agree with what the Prime Minister has really said now? That, we can't allow access to our agricultural sector. Our farmers' interest and the interest of our fishermen really comes first here. Do you in principle agree with that?
Yes, we stand with farmers, and we hope that the government keep its word. Let us not forget that 700 plus farmers martyred themselves for the fight to protect the farmers' rights against this government. That is Mr. Modi's government. Therefore, these words, high-granding words, the big slogan words, all good. But in real terms, what is the action? Protecting the farmers' rights is the most important thing. Farmers, 700 plus farmers martyred themselves to protect their own land and own cultivation. This is the government on which we are speaking about it. But with the Trump administration, the fight, let Prime Minister call Mr. Trump that he is doing this to attack India.
Okay.
Modi is not at all ready to mention the word Trump here. 28 times he has called us that he has done the deal, and now 22 times he has increased the tariff. He is threatening, blackmailing us on these kind of words, and we are silent.
All right. I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. Manikam Tagore there of the Congress party, though the Prime Minister has now clearly spoken about how the interests of the farmers come first. I think that message was sent out loud and clear by the Indian government, and hence the kind of bullying tactics that we're seeing on the part of US President Donald Trump. The opposition is asking what was the need really for the BJP and the Prime Minister to walk an extra mile. For example, the Samajwadi Party has questioned the use of the slogan "Ab ki baar Trump Sarkar" as well. What was the need to do this is what is the question that the opposition is asking at this point in time. Unexpected though, the imposition of tariffs on the part of US really doubling it, a warning of even secondary sanctions and essentially trying to twist India. However, we clearly have refused to budge at this point in time with the imposition or the declaration of the imposition of steeper tariffs on Indian goods over New Delhi's continued purchase of Russian oil, opening really a new front in its trade wars before another wave of duties really take effect. Well, this additional 25% tariffs on Indian goods coming into place in 3 weeks, tacking atop a separate 25% duty entering into force, taking the level to 50% tariffs on many products. This is something that India has condemned, calling the move unfair, unjustified and unreasonable. The foreign ministry also indicating that India began importing oil from Russia as traditional supplies were diverted to Europe over war, noting that Washington had actively encouraged such imports to strengthen global energy market stability. India has said, with the Prime Minister reiterating that we will never compromise on the interest of our farmers, being seen clearly as a strong response to Trump tariff bomb there. Prime Minister Modi said that India will not be looking into, or rather will not be compromising with the interests of the animal husbandry industry and of fishermen as well. When Donald Trump has been asked about why he's singling out India over Russian trade, he essentially spoke of secondary sanctions. His President Donald Trump essentially raising the tariffs on India, and this is also expected to play out in Parliament, with the Congress now seeking a discussion on the same. India is ready to counter Trump is what is clear. The Prime Minister is to review the impact with the Ministry of External Affairs and the Commerce Ministry. Energy imports, including Russian oil, not affected. No US sanctions on Russia, so no change for India in that sense. Tariffs, US protectionism, not a strategic threat. Will respond calmly to protect trade and economy is what India's strategy seems to be here. This is through our sources within the government. Also, to tell our viewers a little about the ongoing tariff war really between both the countries. India stands up to Trump's tyranny in that sense. The Prime Minister, like I said, is to review the impact. Our imports are based on market analysis, overall objective to ensure energy security for 1.5 billion Indians. Extremely unfortunate, unfair is what has now been said by India. This is something that has been said on the part of the government's response to the imposition of these tariffs, and double of these tariffs now at about 50% on many products. Those Donald has delivered another big blow. After announcing an extra 25% tariff on India, the total tariff now is at 50%. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in a clear message to Trump, has said the farmers were of pivotal importance and nation will not let them down. He's also now said that, or rather Trump has threatened to impose secondary sanctions, hinted that US administration could impose more similar sanctions on China. US has imposed the sanctions as a penalty for the continued support, or rather import of Russian oil, bringing the total tariff to a staggering 50%. The penalty tariff will take effect in 21 days. However, India has hit back sharply, saying US targeting of India over Russian oil imports is unfair, unjustified, and also unreasonable. Not just that, it's also made it clear that it will take all necessary steps to protect its national interest. Meanwhile, sources have told India today that India is ready to counter Trump's tariff tyranny. Government sources suggesting the Prime Minister's office will review the impact of Trump's new tariffs with MEA and Commerce Ministry officials. Government sources clarifying energy imports, including Russian oil, remain unaffected and that the tariffs are not being seen as a strategic threat.
India penalties. Do you have any similar plans to enact more tariffs on China as it relates to their purchases?
Could happen. Depends on how we do. Could happen.
There are other countries that are buying Russian oil.
It's okay.
Like China, for instance, buys more.
Yeah.
Why are you singling India out for these additional sanctions?
It's only been 8 hours. So let's see what happens over the next.
Sanctions
you're going to see a lot more.
So this is a taste of
You're going to see a lot more. You're going to see so much secondary sanctions.
You know, China has not stood out there and refused to let President Trump take credit for his role in the ceasefire. China has not had its leader have a long conversation with Trump on the phone and essentially dictate to him, well, what's right and what's wrong. These are things that happen with India. And so I think that that's why perhaps President Trump would reserve some of his greatest ire on the trade and tariff front for India and for the Indian government. Indeed, it's a double standard, it's hypocritical, whatever you want to say, but I do think that that might help explain why India which is, has been such a close partner of the U.S., has been singled out for particularly harsh treatment by the U.S. president. Unfortunately, given just how the relationship has been developing in recent days, this new announcement is not all that surprising, and the president has also appeared very committed to following through with tariffs. And in that sense, despite the potential impact, the damaging impact this could have on the U.S.-India relationship, it's not that much of a surprise to me that in the end the president decided to follow through on his threat to impose this additional penalty. I think that this is the worst crisis that the relationship has faced over the last 2 decades of strategic partnership. I would argue that there is potential for this relationship to be salvaged, not just because of the natural shared interests and the strategic convergences and all that, but this is a relationship that is multifaceted and has many different areas of cooperation that play out on parallel tracks and have the insulation to withstand shocks to the broader relationship.
Meanwhile, RBI governor has categorically said that India contributes more to the global economy than United States.
You are all aware we have a very robust growth rate, 6.5%. And in fact, as per IMF, 6.4% and 3% growth rate of the world, when they look at that, we are contributing about 18%, which is more than US, where the contribution is expected to be much less, at about, I think, 11% or something. So we are doing very well, and we will continue to further improve.
All right, earlier we spoke to Seema Sirohi and Professor Andrew Latham on what they think about this ongoing trade war. Let's take a listen.
And the Europeans are allowed to import Russian oil and gas. The Chinese are certainly doing it. And the United States is importing other materials from Russia, critical minerals, etc. And yet India is being singled out. And my conjecture is that that Trump thinks he won against Japan. He got them to roll over and play dead. Indonesia, the European Union, and the only fly in the ointment, as it were, the only country that has stood up to him is India. And I think it's really emboldened him on the one hand that he beat Japan and the European Union, and enraged him that he can't get his way with India. And so he's doing what the art of the deal suggests. He's ratcheting up the pressure on India, but he doesn't understand that the Modi government only has so much wiggle room here, that there are certain domestic constituencies, which in the agricultural sector, for example, which he simply cannot alienate if the BJP is to have any hope of winning again in the future. So the room for Modi to give Trump what he wants is pretty limited. Now, there are things that the Modi government could do. It could, for example, cut back on the re-export of oil. It's making a lot of money, not just consuming Russian oil, but then selling it on the world market and making some money. It could cut back on that, for example. There are some other things it could do with respect to the defense industry, and there are some things that it could do diplomatically, just give Trump a phone call and maybe, stroke his feathers a little bit. But it is ironic that India is being singled out this way, and in a way that's likely to alienate America's best strategic partner in the Indo-Pacific.